Hello and welcome to, boy, where are we now? Part 666. And we'll look at Errant. I don't have any programming notes. I don't have anything to share other than what we're talking about. So I'm just going to get to that. Let me just get the screen here. Sometimes, as usual, I'm caught off guard as I'm losing my voice also. And again, I'm on Melone. So let me know again if there are any issues. Hopefully my levels and everything are okay. We were in the midst of downtime, and I believe we had finished what was, let's see. We finished actions. Terrence says, coming just live from the gray wastes of Hades. Something like that. All right. Yeah, so we done actions last time. So we can start now with resting, which is part of upkeep. Part of upkeep. Oops, I was just gonna highlight that comment. Okay, resting. When a downtime turn begins, all errants restore hit points up to their maximum, and any archetype-based resources such as jetons, or favor are restored. What is a jeton? Is that, can I? A jeton is a counter or token used as a gambling chip to operate slot machines. I did not know that. Look at that. New word. Remember that. A jeton is a gambling chip used in slot machines. A swig of, what is this? Spindrift Blackberry for the working man. Cool. If the company takes multiple downtime turns in a row, they only restore hit points and other resources during the first downtime turn they take. Rumors. Gathering specific information involves concerted effort, listening in the right places, and asking the right people. However, as a matter of course of spending time in any settlement, the natural dross which drips from wagging tongues will be overheard. Wow, it's quite a turn of phrase. The natural dross which drips from wagging tongues. I like the alliteration, dross and drips. That's nice stuff. And of course, the word dross is also classic. Though such knowledge is likely nonsense and best disregarded, they may contain a kernel of truth. Regardless, such rumors provide excitable errants with leads for questing and adventures to follow, or an adventure to follow. At the start of a downtime turn, the company hears a rumor. All right. Shopping and socializing. During a downtime turn, an errant is free to make any purchases of generally available items, as well as make any minor social calls that they wish without spending their downtime action. Purchases more involved, such as hunting down a specialty item, or interactions more intensive, such as attempting to advance one's relationship or gather information, will generally take an action. Probably also a good cue that if you don't think it's going to take an action, just hand wave it away, right? Let the player go through and pick out what he wants from the equipment lists, or if he wants to go say hi just to say hi to somebody of not too much importance, just have it, just, no need to role play that stuff out, right? Let it pass like a fart on the wind. Funerals. During a downtime turn, errants are able to throw a funeral for their fallen comrades, provided that a body is available to bury. This does not take an action. Every 10p an errant spends commemorating a dead errant's life, whether that be through funding their funeral service, erecting statues of the deceased, commissioning poems or artwork in their honor, or otherwise, can purchase one experience point from their dead comrade. Ooh, I like this. This is nice. This is nice. Terrence says, I believe excitable is what they used to call ADHD when I was a kid. Probably. Though I was diagnosed with adult ADHD, but I don't think I was ever known as being particularly excitable. So I'm not sure about that, but I wouldn't doubt it. I really like this funeral bit. You spend some coin on commemorating the dead. You could purchase an experience points from the dead person, which is, I think, is interesting. So if they're level 1 and they die, however much XP they have, you could purchase, but it's not going to be a lot. If they were level 10 and, I don't know, something happened and they're permanently dead, then you could potentially do something grand and get something out of it. I might hope hope the author's not listening because I might have to steal that one for my game. That's good. That is good stuff. All right. Conspicuous consumption. After an errant has taken their action for the downtime turn, they may choose to engage in conspicuous consumption. Such frivolous expenditure is the most common way to waste money for the purpose of gaining XP. There are 4 types of conspicuous consumption an errant can engage in: carousing, partying, substance abuse, orgies, and rhodomontade. All right, hold on. I got to define this one too. Rhodomontade? All right. Okay, according to the dictionary. Interesting that this pop-up with the dictionary doesn't show up in the streaming window of Microsoft Edge, but I will read it out to you. A rhodomontade is boastful or inflated talk or behavior. And the example sentence is: the corrupting effect, the vogue for macho rhodomontade may have even upon a civilized man. Let me read that again. The corrupting effect, the vogue for macho rhodomontade may have even upon a civilized man. That's a weird sentence. Anyway, it is boastful or inflated talk or behavior. Good word choice. That's an SAT word for you right there. There it says Errant, the word-a-day calendar RPG. Could be. Oh, one of my favorite words, frippery, making an appearance. I like that. I've loved that ever since I first heard it. I think in Willy Wonka is where I think I first ran across the word frippery. Great word. Haute adornments and fashions, sumptuous Epicureanism and gourmandizing, fads and trends. Also, we have do-goodery, needless philanthropy, moral crusading and outrage, doomed, futile, or otherwise ineffectual causes. This one's good. I like that it's called do-goodery, though that actually makes it sound like you're doing something good. And I was like, needless philanthropy? What kind of philanthropy is needless? But I could definitely think about it now. You're kind of you're going after stuff, like doing a benefit for the rich, right? Something like that. The museum that doesn't need a wing. Let's repaint the outside. We'll have a big benefit, and we'll repaint the museum that doesn't need a paint job. That kind of thing. Obscurantism, sophistry, obsessive and trivial research, supreme pretension. Yes, I'm all for pretension, particularly at the supreme level. An errant describes how they are engaging in their particular form of conspicuous consumption and rolls a die and multiplies the result by a set amount to see how much money they waste. An errant can invoke a relevant institution to increase their roll amount by the institution's tier. E.g., if an errant is gambling and they or a company member own a tier 3 gambling house, they may elect to gain a +3 bonus to their conspicuous consumption roll. The die size and multiplier is determined by settlement type. If the result of a conspicuous consumption roll would result in an errant spending more money than they currently have, they are indebted to someone for the surplus. That's another nice wrinkle. If an errant spends more money on a conspicuous consumption roll than they have, they make a check using the appropriate attribute for the type of conspicuous consumption engaged in with a difficulty value equal to the result of their roll. On a failure, they roll on the result below. All right, so if you spend more than you've got, you overextend yourself. You get to roll on this what's that supposed to be? It says 210. So what is that? 2d10. Or do they just mean a 20-sided roll? I'm not sure if they mean that literally 2d10 or if that should be a 20. I guess it can't be a 2d10 because it's got a 1 value. So it must be a 20-sided die roll. And this is for if you overextend yourselves. On a 1, something gets burned down or destroyed. Roll a d6 to see how bad it was. On a 1, confined to a single building. On a 6, large chunk of the settlement has gone up in flames. Oh boy. Future conspicuous consumption rolls receive a penalty equal to the d6 roll till it has been repaired. Roll another d6 to see who knows that you're the cause of the fire. On a 4 or lower, just the party knows. On a 5, a blackmailer knows. On a 6, everybody knows. Yeah, that's some class. That's some classic stuff right there. On a 2, you're beaten and robbed. You're going to lose half your hit points and all items in inventory. Ooh, that's That one I could see. This one's a little bit tough. Simply because, and I get this, as a player, I'm going to be thinking, hey, I want a chance to run a, there's a lot that's in that role, which is some kind of combat, surprise, combat, defeat. There's a lot of variables that are in there. And I could see myself as a player, and certainly other players being like, hey, wait a minute, you're just gonna, there's a little railroad in there, right? You're found. One, you're found. Two, you're surprised, you're cornered in some way. Three, you're beaten up, which means you didn't win the fight, they won the fight, and then they rob you, right? So there's a lot that's kind of rolled up into that as a player I'd want to play out the steps. No, nothing says, hey, no, nothing. I like that you don't know how much your project will cost before you start it. Yes, I like that too. I like that you're gonna. There's a risk involved, and if you want to go big, there's a bigger risk that you might overextend yourself, or you know that you're just super flush, in which case you don't know how much you're spending, but you're sure that however much you're risking, it's within your means. And then Terrence says, burn down half the town. That was one intense sophistry. Yeah, maybe you pissed somebody off. You pissed off one of those stoics, and they just started throwing, lit kerosene out of their bathtub. Burn down half the town. 3 is a magical affliction. Someone or something has put a curse on you or transformed you into an animal. 4, you've gotten into legal trouble. You're due to appear in court. Roll a d6 to see how bad the charges are. 5, you've contracted a disease or infection. 6, you've made an enemy. A random NPC now hates you. Lower your relationship with them by d6 points. 7, you've insulted a local person or organization of import. You're going to lose some reputation with that faction. 8, you wake up in a random adjacent hex, stark naked, in someone or something's house/lair. Your friends have all your stuff. Roll a reaction roll. Your host. Yeah. Again, like there are a couple of these where I feel like either as, I guess on the one hand you think, okay, because there's some of these that I mentioned that, okay, you're kind of, I don't want to say railroad, but you're putting a bunch of stuff into one roll. I think the key thing is if I was going to play this as is, which I can see doing, is I would want to make sure that the players see this and are aware of this table and the kind of things that would happen. That way, if you roll something like, hey, you're gonna just black out and wake up in a random adjacent hex, or you're gonna get beaten and robbed, that they're already aware of it. Because I said before, as a player, I'd want to go through the steps. No, I want to be found out, chased down, beaten up, and robbed, because I think in my brain I can get away, I can call for help, I can escape, whatever. But on the other hand, I could also say as the GM saying, okay, here's the list of things. Here's a list of downsides. If you decide to take this, you are signing off on, you're open to these consequences, including the ones that might in other situations warrant role playing it out. You were going to take that result. You've asked for it. You're getting it. Terrence says, this table mirrors some of my in real life drunken blackouts pretty well. Yeah. So you've woken up in a strange place 6 miles from home, Terrence? I suppose it's not that bad. In the modern life, being in an adjacent hex, if you're dealing with 6 mile hexes, isn't all that horrible. Of course, if you're 20, 30 mile hexes, then that might be more disconcerting. Okay, I'm not gonna go through all these, but you can also get into a brawl, get a hangover, make a pact with a god or some kind of divine or infernal power. You can become betrothed, gain a reputation, be initiated into a cult. Oh, look at that! But you do have a couple of good ones. The ones at the top end of the scale are positive. So you make a discovery or hear a rumor of some sort. You've impressed someone. You get a windfall, and or you make an advancement. You get an increase to your attribute score. So there are definitely a couple of benefits. You could take your chances. And the only way you can get those is to go over, right? So that's interesting. So if you do choose to take that risk of a whole bunch of bad stuff can happen, maybe you're as a player, you're a gamble, and you're like, you know what, there's a 15% chance I get something really good out of it. So I'm gonna take my shot. I'm gonna call my shot like Babe Ruth. Debt. Given that errants have one of the shortest expected lifespans in the natural world, No creditor will guarantee a debt to any individual errant. Instead, the debt of the entire party is held cumulatively. At the start of every downtime turn, the remaining amount owed by the company doubles. Creditors are nasty, unscrupulous sorts, and there are sure to be ramifications for failing to honor one's debt. Yeah, better pay the vig. Get just give it, pay it. I do like the idea that if you decide to take that downtime, you're also saying that whatever debt we have, we know that we've just doubled it. So there's something else, another kind of pay the piper moment with taking that downtime turn. I think those things are really important. I wonder if there's something to do. There's one of the, like one of the things that comes up a lot, and I'm gonna go on a sidetrack for a minute, but this got me thinking. Right, the whole you're gonna be camping in the dungeon, and and I think for the most part, I can generally play it like it's a really bad idea, but maybe you could work it out to be not super terrible. But something like this debt, I don't know, and I don't know how I would work it, but this idea of the debt, that's something that, okay, when you take this action, you are basically, there's this thing you have potentially, because you might not have any debt, but if you have it, you're getting doubled, right? And then boom. So if you want to you have debt and you feel like you need to take 3 or 4 downtime things in a row, then you're gonna quadruple your debt super fast. But you could do it. But there's this thing for like sleeping in the dungeon, or if someone says, I want to take 5 days off and just rest kind of thing, whatever, like the 5th edition thing where you're like, we're gonna do 1 encounter and then take another long rest, and do 1 encounter and take another long rest. And I'm not trying to get into all the things you can do with the timing I talked about in other videos, whatever, but this is really this is a really cool kind of simple way of just dissuading you, unless you're kind of in a good spot, from doing that, because these things are going to start to pile up, and it's just very simple. And I wonder if from some of these other things in which we think about, well, what are things that we don't want players to do over and over and over again that could be abused? There's something simple like this. We can say, okay, hey, you want to take 5 short rests in a row, whatever, great, but each one of those short rests is going to have something, double something, do something where it's very simple. It's kind of in the player's face kind of thing. I don't know. Just made me think about that, because it seems really clean and easy for this kind of thing. We're not going to worry about percentages or, I think that's the thing I like about it. It's very kind of clean and neat. We're not going to worry about any percentages. What percent this or that? What's the interest? Let me get out my calculator. No, we're just going to say it doubles. It doubles, and part of that is because, yeah, you're an adventurer and you have a terrible lifespan, so just guess what? It's doubling, and if you want the money, that's what you got to do. Or if you take that risk and you owe a debt to somebody, like we saw through this table and through the conspicuous consumption, then you just have to deal with it. And I just wonder if there's other ways you could leverage that kind of idea of taking something very simple and then applying really simple math to it as a way of leveraging a kind of clean and easy mechanical consequence for actions that could be repetitive. That's all. All right. Sidetrack finished. Back to lifestyle. Rather than account for every expenditure and income an errant accrues during downtime, a simplified method is used to avoid such tedious bookkeeping. When a downtime turn ends, whatever remaining money an errant has is halved to pay for lifestyle expenses. If the company is taking multiple downtime turns in a row, only pay for lifestyle expenses on the last downtime turn they take. The sum may seem large, but it represents errants living at the very edge of their means, as well as all other expenditures such as taxes or managing any institutions, estates, or domains that they may have. If an errant has an accountant or retainer, they only pay a quarter of their money for lifestyle expenditures. So this is another one, right? Very easy. Would this work for everybody? No, maybe not. Maybe some people want to get more into it. I also like the idea that you having an accountant has a very direct benefit. Why would you hire an accountant and pay them? Because instead of paying, what was it, half or whatever it is, you're paying a quarter. So you're saving a quarter of your money if you have an accountant. The other thing that I think about accountants, I think if your players ask, or someone asks, like, why should I ever hire an accountant, is the other thing I like to think about for the accountants, that they can do stuff in your absence. So if you are doing something where all your rents are due on a day or something, right, that if the party's not there to pay the rents when the sheriff comes around, well, they're in trouble. You need to pay the rents. Well, what does the accountant do? The accountant can be your rep your factor, if you will, to go around and handle that stuff, pay everything off when they need to, and so you can feel free to be gone because the accountant is there holding down the financial fort, so to speak. All right, we're through the upkeep part of downtime. On to training. Let's see, here we go. All right, first up in training is attributes. If there is a suitable trainer in the settlement the errant is taking a downtime turn in, and they have agreed to train the errant, they may attempt to improve one of their attributes with their downtime action. To improve an attribute, 5d4 are rolled, and the lowest die result is dropped from the total. If the total is higher than the current attribute being trained, it improves by 1. An attribute cannot be trained higher than the trainer's attribute. E.g., if the trainer has a skill of 15, an errant training under them could only improve their skill up to 15. The first time an errant attempts to improve an attribute costs 1,000 pennies. Every additional training attempt doubles the cost. So 2,000 and 4,000, 8,000, and so on. This amount is cumulative across all attributes. E.g., if an errant's first attempt at training was to improve their skill, they would pay 1,000. If during the next downtime turn they attempted to improve their physique, they would pay 2,000. This one's interesting. I like it. I like the fact that hey, you can do this thing, right? Everyone, I mean, one of the things I guess that is it a plus or minus? Because one of the things in like your old school game, your average traditional old school game is when you find those weird pools of water and little vials that say "drink me" and little treats that say "eat me." Is there one of the few ways outside of wishes and girdles and things like that to potentially improve your stats? Because you could, a lot of those wells and things, you'd find these weird pools and fountains, and you drink from it, you might get, you'd roll some die, and there's a chance your strength or whatever might improve by 1 or 2, something like that. Being able to train your attributes like this definitely takes away some of the specialness of finding those weird pools of water and drinking from them, because now you can just trade. I don't particularly mind that super much because you can always make other weird and interesting things from the pools, but it is something to be, something that you may want to weigh, because if you really like that idea of those kinds of things being the only ways you can really, in a sense, improve on your DNA kind of thing, then this kind of changes that a bit. The training thing is interesting because they're saying that, hey, the more you train, the higher, more expensive it is. And you can't just reset and say, well, I'm now training this attribute, so now I can go back to just paying 1,000. It's going to keep increasing. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. I do kind of think it would. I would say that the training, I would probably do something like maybe up to the skill of the trainer, so that, okay, the trainer at 10, and maybe there's a minimum, so you can't, like, if you're, say your skill is 6, you find the guy with skill 8 to train you, maybe there's a minimum. But I would say, okay, if I'm going and I'm paying a grandmaster to train me, someone with a skill of 20, then that's really expensive. If I'm going to be paid by a local dude who is okay skill, but their skill is 12, then that's less expensive, and I might do that. So the more the higher my ceiling is, or higher the ceiling of the trainer is in skill, the more expensive it is. But I also understand this one because while it's a little bit gamey in the fact that it doesn't matter if you move towns, move countries, travel through a portal to another world, your training costs still go up, and it doesn't matter if you're training something that you're really bad at versus you're training something that you're only can make very incremental improvements. The training is just that cost. Because on the flip side, by doing it this way, you do have to do the accounting of, I have to count, someone has to keep track of how many trainings you've had. But the other thing is that it limits you in some ways from just burning through a bunch of downtime saying, great, I'm just going to improve all my stats to 15 or 18 or what, yay, and I'm done. This makes it increasingly harder to do that. I don't know if the trade-off's worth it or not. Certainly an interesting way to do it, but yeah, I might want to tweak that a little bit. But other than that, I like it. Let's see. Now, nothing says, when I do Dominion play, if you don't have a steward or a good steward, then the information the player has about his Dominion isn't 100% reliable. So you might think you have more money or food than you do. I like that. Nothing. There's the Lost Temple of Bowflex. Yes, indeed. But I'm always of mixed minds on the whole training of attributes because I kind of like to think of your stats as your DNA. So it's not something you're really improving upon. It's kind of like you're already at your peak. That 14 you are is about as good as you're going to get. And when you're rolling on individual rolls, it's kind of, well, how close are you in this moment, your potential of that thing? Another swig of blackberry spinner for the working man. Oh, wow, it's snowing outside. Cool. So I'm always mixed. But I think that if you want to have it or your players want to have it, this seems to be a pretty good way to do it with that little bit of gaminess, but just to kind of, I think, keep folks from just abusing it too much. Trades. An errant can learn a trade such as smithing, fletching, or cooking. An errant begins as a layman in any given trade. To attempt to learn a trade, an errant pays the requisite fee and rolls 2d6 plus any applicable bonuses for extra expenditures. Each extra 25% of the learning cost adds +1 or situational bonuses to a maximum of +3. Each attempt takes a downtime action. All right, so you pay 2d6. You get some bonuses if you pay extra or if you have some kind of situational bonus, but you can't do that to more of a +3 in each one of these. You have to roll a 10 plus. If you roll a 10 plus, your training is successful. You roll 7 to 9, you have to take another training, but it counts as an automatic success. If you roll 6 or lower, you make no progress. You know, one thing about the attribute training, which might be an interesting thing, is having some kind of role like this table to do, or what is there already a role? Yeah, the 5d4 roll, maybe something like that. But I think what might be interesting is that if you that there'd be a risk to training that you injure yourself. So you're doing some significant strength training, and you hurt your knee, you hurt your leg. So it doesn't necessarily undo the strength you've got. So yeah, oh yeah, you get your +1 strength, but you lose one in your dex or your constitution because now you're not as mobile, or now you have an achy back. Something like that might be kind of interesting. To become an apprentice in a given trade, they must find a trainer who is of apprentice level or higher in their chosen trade. The tracker to be certified an apprentice is in a trade requires 1 success. Training to become an apprentice costs 2,000 pennies per learning attempt. An errant that is certified as an apprentice may make crafting rolls for items related to their trade. Any items produced are of shoddy quality. Shoddy workmanship, boy. To become a journeyman in a given trade, they must find a trainer who is of journeyman level or higher in their chosen trade. The tracker to be certified a journeyman in a trade requires 2 successes. Training to become an apprentice costs 4,000. I think they mean journeyman. Training to become a journeyman costs 4,000 pennies per learning attempt. An errant that is certified as a journeyman may make crafting rolls for items relating to their trade with +1 to their roll. Any items produced are of standard quality. Terrence responding to my bit about the strength trainer says, you skip leg day, reduce speed by 1. Yeah, pretty much. And then let's see, to become a master in a given trade, they must find a trainer who is of master level or higher in their chosen trade. The tracker to be certified a master in a trade requires 3 successes. Training to become an apprentice, training to become a master costs 8,000 pennies per learning attempt. An errant that is certified as a master may make crafting rolls for items related to their trade with +2 to their roll. Any items produced are of masterwork quality. I might want to limit the amount that you can do of that. I've said this before. I'm not a big crafting person for players. My particular very opinionated angle is that I feel like a master is someone who spends all day and all night, and that's what they do. Players aren't doing that unless they retire that character and they say, hey, you are now going to be the master blacksmith, in which case I'm all for it. But that's, years and years of just sitting at the forge, just hammering out stuff all day long. Not, well, we've been adventuring all day, now I'm going to spend a couple of weeks and bam, suddenly I'm a master. Oh, I'll come back in a couple of weeks and then bam, suddenly I'm legendary. I might even say, once a year. You could do it in 1 year, then you have to spend 2 years as a journeyman, then you have to spend, even that might be, I'm accelerating it from what I feel like in real life, but it would mean that the players that really want to do that, A, they're going to have to keep their characters alive that long. So good luck. Good luck with that. But B, they're going to be really, you're going to be really have to keep putting in the work and be motivated to do that over a long span, not only a long span of, fictional time, but also probably a fairly long span of just game playing time, because who knows how long it takes to run through a year of game time. So you really kind of want it. And then I would also say you can only do one. Maybe you can be an apprentice in a couple. Maybe I would say, oh, you can become an apprentice in 3, you can become a journeyman in 2, but if you're going to become a master or a legendary, that is uno. You can only have one that much. But I'm kind of a stickler. I know folks love their crafting, so I won't be. I'll quit my curmudgeoning on player character craftsman for now. To become a legendary artisan in a given trade, they must find a legendary artisan who is willing to pass their mantle on. The Errant will be tasked with completing 3 significant quests, each to recover a specific item component, which they will craft into a wondrous item. Once this has been done, the Errant receives the title of Legendary Artisan. They make crafting checks at +3 and are capable of crafting further wondrous items. And then nothing says, I totally agree that adventures shouldn't. Oh, that adventure. I totally agree that adventures should be master craftsmen, but my players love being master crafted so much. Oh, I think nothing's agreeing with me that they should not be, but players love it. Yeah, I totally acknowledge that it is something that players love, and crafting stuff and all that. Not my jam, but to each their own. I'm not going to hate on you for it, and hopefully you won't hate on me if I'm not. I saw your typo. I think I muddled through it, but yeah, I got that. You agree that they shouldn't be, but they love it. Yeah. Talents. Certain people in the world know special techniques and abilities known as talents, which can be taught. These people are rare and often tied to particular factions or special individuals who will agree to teach them only to those who have the highest reputation or relationship with them. To attempt to learn a talent, an Errant rolls 2d6 plus any applicable bonuses the guide deems appropriate. If an Errant's archetype is relevant to the talent being learned, they may add their renown divided by 3 to the roll to a maximum of +3. Each attempt takes a downtime action. We get another table of results. You got to roll 10 plus on the 2d6 to be successful. 7 to 9, you can do it again, but that next one will be successful, or no progress is made on a 6 or less. A talent requires 3 successes to learn. An Errant that fails a total of 3 times while attempting to learn a talent is refused further training by their trainer. Ooh. So you got to make it or you're not going to get it. Ian says, congratulations. You've leveled up for the 3rd time this month. You can conjure devastating elemental forces at will. Want to make a sword? Need 2 years of apprenticeship. Heck yeah, though. Yeah, I think my players, Ian, would they would, in their wildest dreams, they they would level up for 3 times in a month. My game's not going up. Not gonna, I think, now granted, we play very short sessions. We've had a fair amount of downtime, but I think they're only at level 2, and we've been playing for a while. Which it's not entirely anybody's fault. Things happen, and just the way the twists and turns have come. Yeah, I mean, they're different things, right? So yeah, but the thing is that elemental thing you could throw around, you could do it a couple things, but that's your special thing, right? I think one, who wants to sit around and make swords? I hope the player characters don't. I think the thing ends up happening is I'm less concerned with actually the sword making thing than getting into all the kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say kind of MMO type stuff, but all the let me make 100 plus 8 arrows, or let me do all this stuff. Like I want to kind of be able to enforce a particular rarity that fits with my setting, because a player character who is a wizard may be very rare. He may be the only wizard in 1,000 miles. And he can do that once or twice a day, right? If that, it has kind of controls. Whereas I'm just going to go make 50 plus 8 swords to give around to everybody, so to outfit the party. I mean, just to me, it takes away a lot of what I think. This is why you're delving into dungeons and stuff, to get that. Now, I suppose with a very robust active crafting system, then that changes. Then suddenly you're going into dungeons to get the mithril ore that you're going to make into your 800 mithril vests. It's kind of different, but I don't know. It probably has more really everything to do with just my conception of what an adventure is versus what a smith is than anything else. Terrence says, I'm just now enforcing long downtimes for things that should take a long time. In reality, it's like 5 to 20 minutes of Q&A, but they act like they are missing out on something. It's weird. And then he asked me, in game time, though, how much time has passed? In game time, it's been a few months. They're still in the spring, but we started at like the beginning of spring, and now it is, I think, towards the end of the spring. It's been a couple months. So probably in game time, they maybe have leveled up once a month, maybe once a month of game time. Probably if I wanted to round. Ian says long downtime is cool unless there are events on a timetable going on. Well, that to me actually is what makes the long downtime cool. You have to make choices. I want to do this. This stuff's happening. I want to go learn to do this. Great. It's going to take you 3 months. Well, the orcs are coming to the town that we said we'd protect a couple of hexes away. When are they coming? Oh, they're going to come in a month and a half. And then as a player, you go, ooh, can the town hold out for a month while I finish my training? Or do I got to go bail out and get it? Like, those are the kind of decisions I think I want to encourage. I want people to think about, hey, this is how much time is being taken. This is how much things are happening. So, I want those choices to be out there. But like I said, on the crafting, it is just a matter of, I guess, taste. It's a matter of, I think, the fiction stuff that I grew up on or just that I envision. I want crafts and things to be respected. I want the guys, when they go into the town, they see the smith hammering away at their forge. I want them to respect that guy and not just saying like, yeah, I could do that better, faster, because I spent some money, especially I think in my kind of games where the money can come in real big chunks. So some of these, if I don't adjust the pricing, they would be well within their rights to afford, especially if kind of time wasn't an object. So making time sort of something they have to factor in. And again, scarcity of things for me is helpful. But like I said, if you love crafting and your players love crafting, I get it. Just not my jam, so to speak. Animals can be sorted in 3 categories: feral, wild, and exotic. Training an animal takes a downtime action. To attempt to train an animal, the errant rolls 2d6 plus any applicable bonuses the guide applies depending on their method to a maximum of +3. Expertise in animal handling adds +2 to the roll, while mastery adds +3. Improper training methods may penalize the roll to a maximum of -3. And then we have another table, same kind of spiel. 10 plus, you're successful. 7 to 9, you can try it again. 6 or lower, you just don't do anything. An untamed animal must first be tamed before it can be taught any commands. Taming a feral animal takes 1 successful training attempt. A wild animal takes 2. An exotic animal takes 3. If an errant fails a total of 3 times while attempting to tame an animal, it cannot be tamed. Once an animal has been tamed, determine an animal's morale as you would a retainer's. Deviants with proficiency in animal handling may base morale determination off their skill rather than their presence, I think. If an animal has attack options it can perform, treat it as a henchman for the purpose of retainer limits. An animal can be taught to obey specific commands or new actions and abilities. To do so, the errant describes what they wish to teach the animal, and the guide will set an appropriate tracker for the number of successes. If an errant fails a total of 3 times while attempting to teach an animal a new command, it cannot learn that command. Well, there you go. So these things I feel like are very much, look, I'm probably not also like, ooh, super pets, but people love their pets. And I think if I was playing a rangery type, but I've played a lot of rangery types, I would appreciate having a pet. So having some kind of good rules for how to do that, I think are nice. I like the fact that they require investments of time. I like that they're fairly specific. You can teach a command, right? It's not something like you magically, oh, now if a wolf's my friend and does whatever I want it to do. No, you're going to have to think about certain things you want that wolf to do, protect, attack, whatever. Then you teach it each command. And I think that gives the player maybe a little bit more respect for it and a little more, you don't want to be frivolous. You don't want to, you have to be committed a little bit, which I appreciate, but it does give that to you. Oh, you've found the egg of the ice drake. Okay, well, you We're not going to say that you can't. We're going to put some rules out here, but you're going to have some kind of specific. You're going to have to work on it a bit and spend some time if you really want it. You're not just getting it for free. That's a big thing I don't like, and a lot of times I don't like when you just get stuff for free. I like when you have to put in some work. When you have to put in some work for it. I always find those questions. Someone goes, "Oh, my player wants a flaming flamberge sword. How can I just hand it to him?" And I'm like, I'm not handing it to anybody. I'm gonna tell that player, "You want a flaming flamberge sword? Then have your character go around and ask, has anybody heard about any flaming flamberge swords? And maybe you'll find something, and then you can maybe adventure." Find out where there's the tomb of Freddy the Flambergier who used such a blade. Try to find it, try to delve into it, try to take it. But I'm not just putting it in the next treasure pile because you whispered something into my ear during a break. "I really want a flaming Flamberge sword." Okay. No, not okay. You want it, you go out there, you find it, you earn it, and you keep it. And look, I may not have a tomb of Freddy the Flambergier already created. I'll make one. I'll work with the player as far as making it part of the world. But no, I'm not just giving it to you. Sorry. Maybe I'll make sure it's on my random treasure list just in case. Hey, maybe get lucky and one shows up. But if you got lucky, then you're lucky. Tinkering. An errant can attempt to customize or personalize items with a downtime action. To do so, they pay half the cost of the item for materials and roll 2d6. Specific customizations may require the errant to have found specific materials during play. Bonuses for being trained in a relevant trade or for extra expenditures may apply. When tinkering, the errant chooses which category their stated modifications fall under. We get durable, sophisticated, efficient, and potent. However, customizing an item this way causes the item to also receive an attendant drawback. And then you're going to roll on the table. Either you get to choose the drawback, the GM chooses the drawback, or the item gets a drawback, but no modification. So you kind of goofed it up. And the drawback can be frail, crude, unwieldy, or diminished. I shall diminish and head into the west. Now we get a little more on crafting. An errant that is at least an apprentice in a given trade can make items related to their trade. To do so, they initially pay half the base price of the item they are attempting to craft, representing the cost of materials, hired help, and so on. Then they roll 2d6 plus any bonuses from their trade. Each attempt takes a downtime action. And there's another, the same. I'm not going to keep going through these 2d6 tables because they're all the same. Darren says, "The frightful fripperies of the fearsome Freddy the Flambergier, episode 1. Dude, where's my tomb?" Exactly. I will put it out there. I will work with the player to make it part of the realm. If somebody wanted the whip of Indiana, I would figure it out, but I'm just not into that kind of giving thing. And as a player, I mean, is that really meaningful? I mean, don't you want to find, earn, tear your flamberge off the out of the hand of the foe that you put down to get it, as opposed to, "Oh, I told my GM I wanted one and they just made it happen." I don't know. Maybe it's I don't even think it's a generous thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm happy to make stuff happen for the players, but I want them to really feel like that they're doing it themselves in the world, and it's not just wish fulfillment because they mentioned it. Wondrous items. A wondrous item exceeds the quality and rarity of a masterwork item. It is instead a unique piece of craftsmanship specifically commissioned for its bearer, forged from remarkable materials and wrought by the hand of a legendary artisan. To commission a wondrous item, a legendary artisan must be found and convinced to accept a commission. Doing so is an adventure in and of itself. Next, remarkable materials must be furnished. These rare items with history behind them, whether it be the scales of a great worm or the wood of an ancient tree struck by lightning. Between 1 to 3 remarkable materials can be given to construct a wondrous item. The base cost of a wondrous item is 4 times that of its regular cost. The legendary artisan must be paid this amount as a commission fee. After these steps have been taken, the wondrous item will be ready after 1 to 3 downtime turns, depending on how many remarkable materials were used in its creation. Once the wondrous item has been received, its bearer must name and describe the item. Wondrous items confer benefits to the wielder, though not fully at the level of a true magical item. Treat it as though the item had received 1 to 3 tinkering modifications, depending on the amount of remarkable materials furnished, but with no downsides. If an errant has reached the level of legendary artisan themselves, they may craft wondrous items of their own accord. They must still find remarkable materials to craft it with, otherwise it follows the same procedure for crafting regular items. A wondrous item, though not magical, contains the spark of magic within it. It counts as magical for the purposes of damage resistance and may in time become a magic item or grimoire. Well, there you go. So wondrous items, I think they use the same term in D&D, right? For the really powerful magic items. These are more pseudo magic items, which is cool. I can dig it. This is something that I'd love to see in the, I'm assuming in the finished book, there'll probably be some examples of wondrous items. It'd be good to know kind of what kind of things here. And it also would help kind of get some more context on the whole sort of tinkering thing. Magic items. When a wondrous item is used in the enacting of some great deed, whether it be the slaying of a great beast, a daring heist, or a contest of skill and wit, its magic is kindled. The guide has the final say on whether an event is worthy of kindling the magic of a wondrous item. When such magic is kindled, the errant and the guide may both propose what the magic of such an item is. The magical effects are influenced by the remarkable materials used to craft the item, the personality and intentions of both the artisan and the wielder of the item, as well as, most significantly, the deed that kindled its magic. As a general guideline, if the item is a weapon or piece of armor, it receives a plus bonus equal to the number of remarkable materials used to craft it. The magic item receives a number of powers equal to the number of remarkable materials used to craft it. And finally, the magic item receives between 1 to 3 additional powers based on the greatness of the deed which kindled its magic. So this is really kind of a cool way of saying, look, you got this wondrous item. It's kind of pseudo magical. It's I don't want to say meta magical. It's partly magical, partially magical. Has magic potential. And if you do something amazing with it, you too can make the magic come alive. Brian Smith says, pseudo magic items, you say? And then Nothing says, my game doesn't have a lot of magic items, and I make them before the PCs make their PCs. That way, I'm not even tempted to make magic items that fit the party. Oh, that's good. Nothing. Yeah, I tend to use random tables and stuff for that. So that I'm not, I don't feel like, oh, somebody mentioned to me this thing and suddenly there is this thing. You know, if the dice make it be so, then it is so. Brian Smith responding to Nothing says, I've been guilty of throwing in items I think will be cool options for my PCs. They forget about everything though, so now it's just random. Well, that's the thing too. You know, like there was one time I was playing a game and the GM put in an item for me. I mean, it was literally like this is when I was playing my halfling thief, and then he threw in a cloak of was an elven cloak, a really good cloak for sneaking around skull. I forget which kind of cloak it was. Was it a cloak of elven kind? I can't remember exactly. It was a great cloak, and he put it in for me. Somebody else took it, and for the longest time, they just would not give it up. Even though I was willing to trade, because I was taking point a lot, and I was like, oh yeah, I could use that, being able to hide in shadows a lot, especially, or I could hide a lot and therefore actually try to get off some backstabs and things like that, which are pretty hard to pull off in general. And, you know, it just was one of these things. And the GM, I think at one point just messaged me saying like, yeah, dude, I totally put this in the treasure pile for you, but sorry that this other player is seeing it, that even though they're in the back and even though they have nothing to do with anything with this, that they are just like, oh no, this is like my mother's cloak and I want to keep it for RP reasons, you know. And hey, and look, I'm not trying to be snarky on RP reasons other than like this person kind of made up the story to keep the cloak, but whatever. And ultimately, you know, I was like, all right, and fine. Then finally, I think, I don't know if other people can convince them or something, but I made my attempt, like, hey, can you want to trade? Like, I'll give you this and you give me that. It didn't work out. I was like, all right, and I'll do my own thing. And then finally they kind of came around, but it was one of those weird things that can happen, where you make something for somebody else gets it, or like you know, Brian Smith said, you make something for somebody and they have it and they don't use it. Terrence says, the real risk of putting in an item for a player is the ninja looters. Yeah. And Brian Smith says, yeah, they're like, nah, this cloak is a good fit for a picnic blanket. I mean, that was pretty much it. It was this weird thing where they didn't really need it, didn't really want it, but they just I guess they kind of wanted it. I think what happened was, I think the player wanted it, and it didn't really care that their character had no real reason for it, so they just sort of invented reasons. But, you know, again, that's totally fine. But it's just one of those things that, hey, they made it for one person, somebody else got a hold of it, and it ended up just being a weird kind of thing. Nunya says, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the magic item catalog trope in recent years, but cool stuff is cool, and I want players to engage with the world. Yeah, this is why I like putting things out in the world. I'm down with you, Nunya, on the kind of like let me rip through and see all the wondrous items that are already created, which is why I like using the using tables to generate magic items. And just as an aside, I want to say the white box. I like to use the white box rules for creating intelligent or creating magic swords, and just use that for everything, because you really get some neat combinations of abilities, of intelligence, and all that. Because and my thing is, I know that it's kind of coming from sort of Elric and that kind of the magic sword, and Excalibur and other magic swords, but I don't care. So at one point I had a book that was magic. It was intelligent and had some powers associated with it, and you could do that with any kind of weapon. Because I do get the thing that players will say is, there's so many magic swords, but I use an axe, and I'm never going to find the magic axe, or I use another weird weapon, which is why I just roll for the weapon, and then I'll just go through that magic sword tables and do that. And or even, it doesn't even have to be that. It could be a wand, might have the similar stuff. Could be a brooch. Could be anything. A belt. Anything could have that, and anything can be sentient if it's magic enough. Anything can have those things, and you really end up with a really kind of cool variety. And especially if you widen your concept of the powers they could have from kind of the white box, which is just limited to the stuff that was in the white box kind of thing, then you can really get a lot of fun stuff. Let's see. Terrence says, I blame Pathfinder for this. It's a nice space-saving effort to put stuff like that in the core book, but it's too close to the player chapters. I mean, to be fair, it was in I think in AD&D, it's in the DMG. So, maybe not exactly player-facing, but not too, I suppose if once you've played the game, though, or you've DM'd it, you're going to have pretty good access to it. I guess in Basic Expert, it's in the ref sections. Nunya says, Sentient Swords rules from the old school D&D games are dope. Like, that's not an insignificant section of those rules. That was clearly part of the tone they wanted to communicate. Absolutely. And I just like broadening it out by applying it to everything. And then Brian Smith says, do you guys make a few cool items for shops, or just go totally random? I like to have a couple of unique things in the shop. Otherwise, I go by the rarity of most items to determine if they're in stock. I think it depends on the shop. I think there's going to be some shops that might have something special, but most shops are going to be just kind of mundane. It's kind of setting dependent, I guess. But yeah, I mean, having some unique things in different areas, I think is cool also. All right, 5 minutes left. All right, let's get down through Alchemy and see where we stand. Alchemy. During a downtime turn, as an action, an errant can attempt to turn an alchemist kit and all the components within it into an alchemical item. Doing so requires a skill check. Each component within the alchemist kit increases the difficulty value of the check by 1. An alchemical item can be created in a variety of mediums: incense, oil, pill, potion, powder, and wafer. It is wafer thin, this wafer. A created alchemical item takes up 1/4 slot per component used to create it. It has a depletion of 1. Each component used to create an alchemical item contributes to its effect to that item. For example, the nails of a ghoul have a paralyzing effect. The gills of an ambrosia mushroom have a healing effect. An alchemical item made with both components would have paralyzing and healing effect. If an effect would deal damage, it deals D4 damage. If an effect would heal, it deals D4 healing. If the effect would require a saving throw to avoid, the difficulty value for the saving throw is 2. If an effect has a duration, it is 1. For each additional component beyond the first in an alchemical item that contributes the same effect, increase the damage or healing by 1 die step. Difficulty value of a saving throw by 2 and the duration by 1. Alchemists can be hired to make alchemical items in lieu of an errant. Alchemist has a skill of 14 for the purpose of alchemy checks, and additional alchemists hired to aid in the creation of alchemical item reduce the difficulty value of the alchemy check by 2 each. Whew. So very cool stuff if you want to make your potions and pills and topical oils and incenses. Very cool. I'm definitely more down with like the alchemy kind of stuff. I think it's stuff I would let players do. I mean, within some reason. But again, I tend to be, I mean, look, it's all going to be setting dependent, and I don't have a lot of crazy like gonzo flowers with crazy poisons in them that the players can just harvest for and make crazy poison potions or something like that. So I like things a little bit down, but I like the idea of, in a sense, the alchemy, or even just the making like healing salves or things, the kind of get me the Athelas kind of moment, like, and I want to empower players to be able to do that stuff. It just has a risk. You have to run out into the forest that's potentially dangerous to go find this stuff, and all that kind of good stuff. So as long as the effects are somewhat within the scope of the campaign style, and there are drawbacks and consequences as well as good things, that the system seems pretty cool. Mechanics for horse dewormer. Yes, potentially. And then nothing says, interesting. I almost never put unique items in a shop. I want unique items to be unique, not just bought in a shop. Oh, I see what you're saying. Nothing. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of unique in that sense. I was thinking of unique in the sense of there might be a town, and because that town has, for example, let's say you have a town on the edge of a swamp, and there is a certain moss that grows in that swamp that has a healing property, that there are items in that shop in that town that are unique to the town. Not unique in that there's only one in the world, but to me, it's unique that, oh, in this town, I can buy this thing. If I go down the road away from here, it doesn't get sold. It's not sold anywhere else. It's like, this town has this thing you can do. Oh, okay. This town, like you go to the gnomish town and they have gunpowder. You're not going to find gunpowder anywhere else but in gnomish town. Not that it's a unique item. I totally agree that items that are super, really unique and like a unique magic item, it's out there somewhere. It's not floating around the back of a shop. All right. Well, we are not through with downtime yet, folks, but I don't have any more time. Terrence says, I mostly meant unique in that it's a very low powered magic item has an irritating drawback. And then Brian Smith says, like, I had a drow shop owner who had magic items made with underdark ingredients. Yeah, Brian, that's kind of the thing I was thinking. I think along the lines of Brian Smith, right? This guy is in a unique, somewhat geographical location, has a unique skill, has access to kind of unique, and I would say unique in quotes, not necessarily that he's the only one in the multiverse that has it, but practically speaking, yeah, this drow guy, he's the only one that's got some access to, he's got to connect down in Minzobaran, Jan, or whatever it's called, Minzobaran, whatever, in Drow City down under the earth, that's got this, so that you're not going to find it in every town. I think it's good actually to give towns and different places part of that uniqueness is give them something that they do either better than other people, or that here's the town, the elven town in the Iron Oak Forest has these iron oak staves and iron oak things that are just better because the iron oak is a better tree. It's a better kind of tree. It's just better. All right, so what are we looking at? We got 4 more sections of downtime. I do think this is the end if we can get through these. So I'm guessing maybe tomorrow might be we'll end in 7 parts on Errant, and maybe I'll have a chance to go through Ava's notes that she sent me. Hope you guys are still enjoying this. I gotta bail out. If you give a thumbs up to this on your way out, that would be awesome. Yeah, we'll continue tomorrow with part 7, the end of the downtime. This downtime stuff's really, really good. I might need to dig into this some more because I think, and my whole thing with all these rules is always, I may never play Errant just as a thing, but it already has a bunch that I've read, a bunch of stuff that I could pull out of there and use, much like Ava found inspiration in other materials that she's kind of repurposed or tweaked a little bit. There's definitely things. I am certainly inspired by Errant. I hope you folks are too. But yeah, that's all I got. So enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you're watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I will talk to you later.